Hi, welcome. In this podcast, we talk B2B marketing and what it takes to know your customer, innovate, and profit. We're glad you made it. This is The Campaign by 97th Floor. Hello and happy Friday. I am Paxton Gray, and this is The Campaign, a B2B podcast about understanding your audience, innovating beyond best practice, and producing outsized profit. I'm joined today by Jonathan Riemer, Director of Global Content Experience and Senior Writer at ServiceNow, an AI platform that delivers IT operations, field service management, and app engine solutions, producing AI agents to work for people. Jonathan leads the global demand content experience team at ServiceNow and has been an integrated marketing, demand gen, and content strategy powerhouse for high growth B2B, SaaS, and tech companies, including DocuSign, Sprinkler, and Emerson Network Power. So Jonathan started at ServiceNow in 2019, and in 2021, CEO Bill McDermott was talking about his plan to take ServiceNow to become a $10 billion enterprise company by 2024. And he said, quote, "Our organic growth machine is in full flight, and our pipeline is stronger than ever. All this now is really making ServiceNow one of those real standard platforms for well-run companies in the 21st century." Well, cut to the end of 2024, and ServiceNow is now worth over $216 billion. So they far surpassed that goal. And I'm sure in no small part to Jonathan and what his team is doing to grow those organic channels. So with that, thank you for joining us today, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you so much for that kind introduction. I would say that this is the within our all of our marketing careers, this has been a unique situation for me because I'm working in a company. Not that the companies I've worked with before have had problems, but the company I'm working with now, ServiceNow, the products are phenomenally fantastic. And I know some people would say, well, what do you need marketing for? Oh, no, you still need marketing because you've got to cut through the clutter and get over the perceived parity that's out there. But oh my gosh, such a blessing to work with a company that is at the forefront of how things are being done, and thus at the forefront of how we market to people as well. So I'm just excited by that whole opportunity.
Well, we're super excited to have you here talking with us. I hope to have you back many times because there's a million things that we could talk about and that you could enlighten us on. But today, we're going to be diving into a fairly polarizing strategy in the B2B marketing world, which is gated content. So love it or hate it, gating ebooks, white papers, and webinars remains a cornerstone of lead gen for most B2B enterprises. But is it still the right approach in 2025? Critics would say it stifles organic engagement and alienates prospects, while proponents praise its role in building robust pipelines. Our goal today is to dissect this debate, explore its evolution, and examine whether gated content is a relic of the past or is it a key to unlocking high-value leads moving forward. So right off the bat, Jonathan, what's your take on the great debate of gated versus ungated content?
Okay, wow, what a topic. First of all, it is so I'm going to make sure that I'm remembering the new copyright things that have come into play in the last year. It is amazing the amount of interest that Steamboat Willie has for demand gen content out there. So one of the biggest problems, of course, is people filling out forms incorrectly, right? Because they just want to get to the goods. Mm-hmm. From a standpoint of my history and where I come from, I think that all of my friends out there in marketing world realize the yin and yang of demand generation and KPIs and metrics for showing success and influence and everything. And it is so easy to grab onto that pendulum and let it swing over into I'm just delivering leads. And that means that I'm going to gate everything. And I'm going to set up channels which require gating of everything because my KPI is just delivering X number of form fills. On the other side of things, you go to people going, we're not going to gate anything, and we're going to just organically lead people to purchase. And while that may be sustainable in the world of retail, and even for some smaller B2B that have have price prices of their products and solutions that are at a rate where someone can purchase instantly online.
Hmm.
That way, in those situations, you can associate. Well, people looked at these things and they went right over and they filled a cart. So that's not easy, but it's easier than the enterprise world that a lot of
Yeah.
your customers live in, Paxton, and where we live as far as ServiceNow is concerned. Um, so I know that I'm kind of going all over the place on an answer for this, but it's something that we're looking into and we're exploring. I will admit that as most companies over the last decade have depended on form fill as being an indication of success. It is a gut check time to figure out what is needed by people right now, or accepted by people right now when they're engaging with a company leading to purchase. And
Yeah.
so my view on to gate or not is I don't know. We got to figure it out because I think that there's so many variables involved in things. That means that we have to first understand what our audiences want, and when they're willing to give us information. That's the only commerce that we really have right now on sites and properties that do not have that cart I was talking about.
Hmm.
And so one of the examples that I always use, and people in my work we're going to say, oh my God, Jonathan's going to talk about this again, is if somebody has their kitchen sink spewing water everywhere, they've got to turn that water off. And so do they want some kind of meaningful 3D experience on how to turn off the water, or do they just friggin' want the water turned off? They probably just want the water turned off and they need a quick explanation of how to go do that. Great. So we figured that out. But if they're desperate enough, can we put a form in front of that? I don't think so. I think that when you're trying to solve a real basic problem that someone has, you don't form it. And if someone wants to dig into further information, to belabor this analogy, if they want to, hey, would you like now that you've turned off the water, because we gave you these 3 steps, if you want contacts that are great plumbers in your area, go to here. We can put a form in front of that. Or if you would like to learn how to perhaps do your own plumbing, we've got some great videos that are ready to help you fix it yourself. If you're a do-it-yourself kind of person, we can put a form in front of that. But you still have solved that initial problem that they had, which could be something as esoteric as, I'm just trying to figure out, should I form content or not? Or as dire as, if I don't figure out this security risk answer, I've got to shut down my entire IT department. So
Right.
it depends on where it is. So it's kind of one of those things where I think it's up to us as marketers to really understand where our audiences are and what's driving them. And that's the real answer between forming and not forming. So I'll let you talk. I just babbled a bunch. So I
No,
would
it's
welcome your
fascinating. There is a client that we've worked with in the AI deck generation space, so building out slide decks,
Okay.
and talk about like sometimes they have a very immediate need. And one thing that we had learned as we were building out their marketing is that kind of idea of desperation. And so their model is based off of demo.
Mm-hmm.
And often when you need AI to build something, you're either playing around with it and you just want to see how it works, or you're like, I need to do something really fast here. And so the demo can serve both of those. But
Sure.
so it was that same idea in the sense that it kind of scratches that itch. But then if you want to go further, now you need to enter our ecosystem and create an account and
Yeah,
go
yeah.
a little bit
But I
deeper.
would say, Paxton, you said that there's the risks that someone has or they're feeling threat. And I know that I use the analogy of the water spewing everywhere, and we can all identify with that. But what if the need or the anxiety is positive, and it's around, I want to be the most innovative whatever
Hmm.
CIO, CHR or whatever out there, and that means I need to stay ahead of the competition, and I've got 3 months to figure this out so that I don't lose market share because we're a laggard, right?
Right.
There's still threat there, but it's not based on there's an emergency right now. I've got to figure it out. So I think that we also have to identify the positive anxieties that drive people, and we always have to remember is like, are people willing to give information at this point? And we'll get into the other part of that, which is, do we really need their information?
Yeah.
And what what's the right thing? Because as you and I have talked about, we've all experienced on news sites and things like that, where we say that's a really interesting story, and you start reading it, and then that thing pops up, and you go, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to subscribe because first of all, I've already got enough subscriptions I can't keep track of, and the other thing is just give me this information. You're already serving ads to me, and so
Right.
why am I having to give more information to that?" But
Yeah.
hats off to them, because I think that in this grand scheme of things, that um, news organizations, whether or not they're surviving the headwinds of the economy right now or not, they are the ones probably at the forefront of figuring out how to create that content that is digital still, but feels special enough to warrant someone giving information. And so they can do that subscription thing and that thing. So shame on us from a B2B standpoint not to consider that as well. Some things should be free. Some things are, no, if you want to find this out, you're going to have to give me something for it. Right.
Yeah.
All right.
I do think there's something to be said for the showmanship. I mean, it's been played out in pricing models that we've seen. Same product, one is much more expensive, and the perceived value is higher simply
Mm-hmm.
because it's more expensive. And in the attention economy, the idea of like our attention, our time as a resource rather than simply dollars, I think has merit here, where uh, the simple nature of saying, I'm not going to give you this unless you give me some information and join, that can increase the likelihood that that content will then be consumed and will be perceived as more valuable because they're not just going to give this away for free
Yeah,
versus
sure.
saying it's here. So how do we balance that if we're going into more of an ungated philosophy?
Okay. So it depends on, again, what the intention or desire or need is of the audience. And I'm going to keep sticking audience out there. Uh, we are guilty as marketers to make presumptions and to design stuff which looks neat on a PowerPoint slide, but actually doesn't necessarily reflect the reality of how people are experiencing the world. And so at the top of the funnel and stuff like that, when you think about what is someone willing to give information for, it's probably research and data that they don't have ready access to and may surprise them. And so, like research reports and stuff like that, people love to do those, and they're very valuable, especially if they're done well. I do think, however, you still have to show people what they could expect. It's kind of like the movie preview, so
Mm-hmm.
that they go, and it kind of gives them two or three or four data points where they go, "Holy, you know what? I didn't know that, and I want to take advantage of it. Now I'm willing to give stuff." They have never that they're not even considering you to purchase yet, or maybe far in the back of their head, they're just trying to figure out something that has to do with their industry or their profession or where things are going. So from that side, I think it gets easier, if that's a good word, to gate things as you get further down that aging funnel that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
When people have learned why they need something, and they have said, I've got to get the information that shows how I can apply that, what's out there to fulfill that need.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you just suddenly gate everything. That's at the consideration stage, using arcane terms and stuff. It means that if you're offering something which is like a true return on investment report on why, if you don't invest in this, you're at risk.
Yeah.
People probably would be willing, if they believe that they're going to get meat to it behind it, they're willing to give information. Um, Again, it's one of those things. I know there's always this great dance between demand content producers in my world and the digital realm of search and stuff like that. They're going, no, everyone wants to just find things and get information, and if they're truly interested in you, they will gravitate towards talking to one of your salespeople. And I agree with that, but from a demand content standpoint, there's so much investment in really valuable things like the New York Times will not give away a subscription. At some point, you've got to say, you've got to give me something to give you this information. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it's kind of like we've got to figure out when the audience is ready to do that. And that gets me into a whole other topic, which is that means that you've got to respect the audience to provide them the highest value for what you're asking them to exchange currency for, and currency being information. And that means that if that audience only wants to watch videos or podcasts, you better not be gating a long form piece of content for them, because that's
Mm.
not what's interesting to them. That's not what they need. And vice versa. If there's someone who wants, the hard copy where they can highlight and stuff like that, don't be serving them up 30-second videos and 50-second videos, because they're not going to offer information for that. That to them is just the intro, or the hint is what is going to be in this thing that they know that they've got to commit to reading. And again, it's all going to be based on data. It's going to be based on intent data, win reports looking back on who was involved and at what point and what they looked at and why, and then empowering the marketing departments to create the content that fits those things based on the intent data that they're showing. And I don't know where you want to talk about that,
Yeah.
but that's where we get into AI, because there's so much crazy stuff on AI that could help with that, which is
Yeah.
amazing. So let me know when you're ready to get into that topic, and we can delve into that. But I'll let you
I want
take
to get
over.
into it. Yeah. Tell me how are you using AI
All right.
to get
So I
into?
mean, we're dabbling in it. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, of course, the writers and stuff like that will use, writer AI, but they will use an AI product that will help them, do some of the mundane stuff around summarize this long form content into an abstract for me for content syndication. Give me V1s. I will always point that out, of some emails that could help promote this. Give me a V1 of some social content that could help promote this, so that I can take it and go, yeah, that's pretty right. And the trick on that is, as the team really focuses on prompts, maybe after 6 months, 9 months of refining the prompts, you can start thinking of those as maybe V1.5. I
Yeah.
don't have to do as much changes on them. So that's like the nitty gritty, boring stuff. It's like, well, duh, people have been doing that for 5 years. But let's think about content experiences that could be delivered for exactly how you, Paxton, want to get something and you're willing to give me your information for. I heard from a friend of mine yesterday that they had seen uh, a, uh, a demo from Gemini, which is Google, right?
Yep.
And there was a thing on here. It wasn't 100% fantastic, but it was like nearing it, where they took a long form piece of content, a long article, and said, "We want that to be a podcast. Here are the two voices that we're going to give you to use for that podcast." And it
Yeah.
created a podcast like you and I are doing right now, based on that article.
Mm.
Now, that's scary for podcast producers, but it doesn't have to be. From a content strategy and experiential standpoint, if I don't know how you prefer to engage with me and get information from me, the power of being able to say, "Hey, Paxton, tell us how you would prefer to." We've got this fantastic information about the power of AI agents for your HR department. How do you want to get this?
So
And you go,
choose
"I
your
would love to hear a
adventure.
podcast for it, because I have to commute every day, and or an audiobook, right? I don't want to see the 40-page report, and I don't want to see a video."
Right.
That there would be base information that is very good, well researched, owned, and powerful, and you could use AI to create exactly the format that you want, which would be a podcast of two good voices, and and it doesn't sound like it's canned or some kind of like artificial intelligence doing it, where you go, "This is fascinating, and now I want to find out more. I will give you information for this." Or you could
Mm.
say, "I really would just like to read the report. I like to skim through stuff while I'm doing whatever." That's the
Yeah.
way I engage. That's where AI is going to be so amazing and incredible for demand generation, is to better respect our audiences, and better provide them the information that they want in the formats that they want. Now,
I
it's
had
going to take a
yeah.
whole different skill set of writing and design and all those things. But hey, designers and writers, isn't that exciting? Your jobs, again, are not going to be replaced. You're still the base and root source of information that's got to be out there. The kind of the rodeo, person, not the rodeo clown, the rodeo person keeping track of everything and
Mm.
making sure that no one gets hurt. there's so much potential there, and it's so exciting. And that's where I think it's going to be interesting from the demand side of things. And I know that you're supposed to be talking to me, and I have not let you talk at all. So one thing I will add to that is that all of this stuff adds greater responsibility as marketers in the next 5 years, because the power of auto created content is amazing, but it is going to allow for lazy promotion and lazy marketing, which means that there's going to be exponentially more noise.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing what happens. Maybe there's going to be at some point there's going to be a time when there's actually a legally required watermark that says human produced,
Oh, yeah, I'm
or
sure. I can see
50% human
legislation on
produced
that.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And then by law, you could just ignore all the stuff that you know is being auto generated for you with no thought as to what the resources are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Something that I see brands do a lot that fight for gated content, now kind of mixing these two, is they will put everything behind these forms in the name of saying, well, we're going to nurture them. But then they have a really terrible nurture process, or none at all in some
Yeah.
cases. And they say, well, I'm just going to, at someday I will. So I'm going to gather this information now. But it seems to me silly to decrease the amount of people seeing this content that is potentially beneficial for your brand without having a solid nurture pathway. Something that you said that I thought sparked an idea is uh, agent or agentic content. So the idea of like agentic AI is that you'll set up AI specific to do a certain thing, almost like.
Mhm.
Yeah, do you want to say what you're saying earlier about as members of the team, how AI might, like the
Oh
format might
yeah,
change?
yeah. I saw it, but I saw a presentation from HubSpot that was done before the end of the year. I just watched the video where they were talking about they view for marketing inbound agents, AI agents as being people. And people in, if you want to make it italic or lowercase or in quotes or whatever. And then actually they were proposing that these people will be part of your team, and perhaps they even warrant, because of their talents, LinkedIn type profiles. And if you think about it, if I was putting a team together that had to solve X problem, I would need this person, this person, and this person, and maybe these two AI agents that do these things, and I will interview them,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and
Yep.
I will include them as part of my effort. It's just fascinating to me, and it doesn't represent a scary thing about replacement. It's kind of like we're getting into the crazy world of Star Trek and Star Wars and stuff like that, where you've got these sentient robots and things like that that are there to assist you, and they're part of your team, but they're not equal to you, which is
Yeah.
it's just fascinating. So that was what I saw and went, I have never thought about that way, and that's so interesting, because if you think about even for AI agents for marketing, and the example I gave around the podcast thing, you could tie in several AI efforts, one around compilation of information, the other AI a thing that you would have would be transference from that information into format X. So it could be video, audio, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the third one would be maybe fact checking or whatever as an AI function. And the agent would be the thing that would pull those things together.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's how that works, is that the agents are just the things that organize
Yeah.
and bring in AI functionality into a singular need or function or thing. I'm sorry, I'm using
Yeah.
function, but I
No.
mean,
Yeah.
anyway. And I don't know who's there. Maybe someone out there is putting it together. Our skunk works at ServiceNow, maybe working on it. I don't know, but anyway,
Yeah.
that's where it's kind of like, yeah, I think that's the expectation that people that are being sold to out there are going to have, which gets us back again to this whole gating or ungating thing. Um, One of the things that I think is a very interesting exploration, at least from me personally, I came from. I will admit that I'm not the latest two generations coming up to, so I'll own my age. Um, I am used to, God forbid, for physical materials, but also PDFs and things like that is a thing, and that new generations coming in, there's an expectation for other formats and things like that. But one thing that I am really strongly promoting with my team as we try to figure this all out is the one advantage. And hear me out for all of you people who are PDF haters, because I'm not promoting those. The one thing that PDF said is an advantage is they felt like something.
Yeah.
It still felt like something physical, like if I got a book at the bookstore or whatever. So I think that that's part of that's why Kindle and e-readers and everything are still very popular, because it feels like you've downloaded something, you've got something. Okay. It is up to us to make sure that if we adopt a digital first view of things, that we're not just creating additional web pages that someone could
Yeah.
say, I could have just found that on your web page. It becomes an experience or a thing or information that is sequestered, that I go, I would never have gotten this in this way or with this experience unless I had not given you information. And what does that mean for a non PDF? Because a PDF, I can always say, Paxton, you gave me information. Here's your file. You can do with what you can print it off if you want to. That we've got to somehow create that same feeling. And I know that's a very wishy-washy word, but that's kind of how I'm viewing things. And
Yeah.
I don't know the answer yet. I feel like, again, as I was talking before, some of the more reputable news sites have kind of got it figured out. There's like beautiful special reports from New Yorker and New York Times and stuff like that, where you go, this feels special, right?
Yeah.
But it's still part of their web presence, right? It's all part of their properties. So
Right.
how do we do that?
Yeah.
I
There's
don't
two
know. You
things.
tell me, and
Yeah.
all of your
I'd
listeners out
like
there,
to.
you tell us, because we're ready to do it. So we're figuring it out.
So there's two things I'd like to see brands do. One, I think you could lean more into that idea of it being a book. Like what I want sometimes is when I will download an ebook. By the way, just for those listening, ebooks are 3 to 5 times more likely to be requested compared to guides and white papers. So whether it's a white paper or a guide, call it an ebook, and it's going to be more attractive. But this is where I do most of my reading, right here on this iPad.
Oh yeah,
I
me too.
want an ebook to go right into my Books app or into my Kindle app. And there's really no reason why you couldn't publish your ebooks on the
Oh,
Kindle store
see,
and
yeah,
then send a discount code, right? So they can
and
download it for free.
I will admit, even like, oh my God, I'm floored. I never even thought of making PDF versions of things part of the Kindle experience. Wow,
Yeah,
that's, especially if you think about stuff that's accepted in that would be like meaningful research, and if there is thought leadership, or there is information that you had not dreamt of, or you want to
yeah,
really dig into something, like if Bill, our CEO, was really getting into talking about what our view on AI agents is over the next 10 years. That may be something that you would want to read in a
sure.
Kindle thing, right? That'd be
Yeah,
cool, right?
yep.
Yeah.
The maybe completely opposite direction I would love to see someone go is going back to this idea of agent would be what I'm just going to coin right now, agentic content. The idea being, sometimes when I'm getting a report as a lead gen thing, they'll say, give us your email. We're going to work on this report and we're going to send it to you. The logic is, I'm not trying to gather your information. I just need your email so that I can send it to you once it's
Right.
done. And I think that is much more acceptable than, I have this here and I could just give it to you, but I'm not going to until I give you this, until you give me your email. To take that further, this idea of agentic content you could theoretically have, and it'd have to be the right kind of content. But if it's longer, it's more meaty, more research based. Maybe I don't want to read 60 pages of this white paper, but I am interested in the topic and how that impacts me. I think the case could be made to where you can say, tell me information about you. Tell me your information about your business,
Yeah.
what your situation, what your problems are. And then what I'm going to do is give you your own 2-page summary of what this 60-page piece is, but it's
Yeah.
going to be based off of you and what you need to know. Uh, Now, I'm not giving you my information because you want it. I'm giving you my information because it's going to make this content better for me. And
Sure.
agentic AI opens the doors for that. And
Yeah.
so you're creating a new piece of content for every single person that walks through the door.
Well, and what's more powerful too is that the agent part of it is that it brings together multiple things. So it's
Yeah.
not only the summary, but again, when I talk about it, could be, give me the summary of this as the head of HR for a major medical institution. but I need it to be a PowerPoint deck.
Oh, yeah. The format. Yep.
Yeah. So you let that. So not only is the summary part of it, the other part is the format and how it's delivered, right? And so we have that. That's in Copilot and other things. They're already starting to do that, but and maybe it's because I'm just ignorant of where things are going, but it feels like there's so much opportunity from a marketing standpoint to do that. And it's not hokey, and it's not supposed to trick or fool or be all bright and shiny for the audiences. It gets back to, again, what is it that our audience needs so that we are the least disruptive for their experience but provide the most value. And if that HR person over a major medical institution has got to throw some slides together in the next day showing the power of X, then we've provided him or her or them a incredible amount of resourcing and value right there. And the other thing too is on as we get into to forming and asking for information, I do think that there is a interesting discussion and exploration that we need to continue about how many times are you going to give is an audience going to give you a buy. In other words, do we offer them something really fantastically valuable first and then the next time we form them, or do you do forms from the beginning? Because if you offer a form from the beginning and the content that they download ends up being not what they expected, and that's up to us to market it correctly, um, they're not going to download something again, unless of course we've captured their information and says we've already got this filled out for you.
Right.
The other thing too is that we have to. And this is something we talked about before with the nurture and the follow up. We have to understand that right now, when people fill out a form in the B2B world, they are admitting that they're ready. They're getting ready to have someone, a door-to-door salesman, come to them and interrupt them. And I'm sorry, inside salespeople, I don't mean to put you down, but they know they're going to be reached out to, and they're going to be getting some communications and things. And it's one of those. That's why people put false information, or we never put our phone number. Oh my gosh, we wouldn't want that because you're going to get text from people.
Yep.
Not that I do that, but anyway, how do you make it so that you enable the marketing function to deliver to you, Paxton, more information based on what you had already downloaded that could still be controlled by an inside sales group or its sales team, but it does not involve them yet?
Right.
And that could be handled by AI as well. That's
Right.
that person who was on Facebook. That's the AI agent that is part of that sales team. Your
Yeah.
job is to keep feeding stuff to Paxton that is about this topic without bothering him on the phone yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it becomes interesting because the nurture is, hey, you were interested. It's kind of like retail. It's like you bought this, you probably want this too. And sometimes it's like, you were going to cover up plants and stuff like that. Why didn't you think you needed to have plastic? Anyway, sometimes it's like, duh, but other times it's like, I didn't know I needed that. And thank you. I'll keep looking at it. So it's okay. And then that gets also away from the whole problem of the challenge of when we are premature to follow up on things. And the last thing that someone who's an inside salesperson wants is to call someone and them to go, I don't remember downloading or looking at anything you're talking about. Oh my gosh.
Right. It wasn't
All
impactful.
right. Yeah.
Or
Or was it
yeah.
impactful? Or they may have downloaded something without really thinking about it was coming from this source. It may have been from a search on a topic. And they
Right.
didn't care who published it. They just downloaded it and forgot to look at the logo that was in the corner. So just
Right.
got to understand, again, that's where you go, what is the value? What are we trying to produce? And what is the reaction we're trying to get, and making sure that we are always the most valuable for our customers, period.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, to wrap up, Jonathan, I think it'd be great if you could share with our listeners one or two tips for somebody who is currently looking at their mid funnel and considering gating or not gating their content. What would be one or two things you'd have them look at?
Okay. Oh, that's a good one. Um, I would say, well, mid funnel is interesting too, because historically that's been discovery, right? Not awareness. So
Yeah.
that means that the person has identified the fact that there is something that is important to them, whether it's inspirational or fear based. I've got to get this solved, or oh my gosh, we should be doing that. That's so cool. I've been moved by brand or moved by some thought leadership, I would say that make sure that whatever it is that inspirational or threatening thing, you have clearly communicated that there are answers and next steps for it, and not something wishy-washy. And that in order for you to take advantage of what is going on, that those next steps are hinted at clearly before you ask for a form. Because the next step would be, all right, you were inspired by this thing around AI agents. We're going to give you the 3 things that you need to be considering to see if you're mature enough to actually use these. It's still not selling any products or talking about, it's just like, here's the next thing. So I think the biggest tip I would say is make sure it is a natural progression. And that sometimes is a challenge when you've got different groups creating things, but that requires a really good collaborative centralized view of what that experience is and journey is. So that's one thing. Be really forceful in making sure that you demand that there be that thread. Another tip would be, let me think. It's okay to tease people. You're not giving away the whole farm if you give your most important data up front, because often it is the surprise and wow data. Like you said, I saw some of the stuff in the prep for this that said that ebooks actually had in form fills that actually increased in their people in filling out forms. That's a huge piece of data that I'm going, oh my gosh, that's interesting. Give that to people. Where you ask for the information is like, let's now explore why. Yeah. So don't be afraid to give out stuff which is going to inspire. And it's not gimmicky and it's not clickbait or anything. It's like, hey, we got this stuff. The other thing I would say is it's a freebie here. As we get better and better at tracking people and what they do and things like that, know that if someone is truly interested in finding out more about your products and solutions, they will be, and you've done a good job of getting to that point, they will not be afraid to give you information. And so it is up to you not to have anyone ever do that. They put a form up thing, okay? Because that's not what you want to happen. And that sometimes may mean not forming anything until that scary consideration stage where you're going, I don't know who's looking at this and if it's got pipeline associated with it and all that. Well, if you've got a long sales cycle, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't, as long as you had some way to equate activity and engagement back to impact, because that helps you justify what you're doing, but also better plan, budget, and stuff. So I hope that's helpful. There you go. Easier said than done, though, right?
Yeah, much easier said than done.
Yeah, for sure.
Great takeaways. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope to have you back because you're just a wealth of knowledge, and there's so many things we could talk about. Particularly, I'd love to do an AI focused episode.
I would like to, and I would want to bring in some other people because I want to learn too. I am like a baby in this, and I want to figure it out. Yeah.
So much to learn. Thank you for joining us. Thank you everybody for listening. Stay tuned. Next week, we're going to have SEO extraordinaire Nick Leroy join. So that's going to be great. And thank you for listening to The Campaign.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks for listening. The Campaign is produced by 97th Floor, a 20-year-old marketing agency that helps companies like McKinsey, Pluralsight, and Checkpoint know their customers, execute innovative campaigns, and drive profitable growth. If you have an allocated growth budget and product market fit, we'd love to do research and build a proposal for you. Visit us at 97thfloor.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe. See you next time.